You guys remember what life was like before COVID? I do. It's a mass shooting every week. Anyone remember that? Thank God for COVID.
Well, that didn't last long, so here we are again. My name is James Lee. I make videos about business, politics, and society. If you are open to challenging conventional ways of thinking about those topics, please join the 5149 community by subscribing to my channel and clicking on the notification bell icon. All right, guns. Yeah, even that cute puppy is not gonna make this conversation any easier. I get extremely sad every time I hear about a mass shooting, and there's a lot in America, so I'm sad a lot. But here's the inconvenient truth about gun reform in the United States. It probably won't happen. Well, it won't happen so long as there is a two-party duopoly controlling American politics, because within a duopoly, votes are typically driven by wedge issues, a divisive political issue, especially one that is raised by a candidate for public office in hopes of attracting or alienating an opponent's supporters. Things like guns, immigration, abortion, etc. Now, what's missing from that definition is that wedge issues are issues that neither party truly intends to solve. For example, with gun reform, a majority of Americans support what we call common sense gun reform. Things like increasing mental health funding, background checks for private and gun show sales, requiring a license before a gun purchase, things like that. I would expect with that kind of national consensus, there would be some meaningful legislation that's passed. But it's been over a quarter of a century since we had any kind of federal gun reform. What they do instead is to try and radicalize both camps to prolong and preserve this wedge issue. Because let's say we came to a consensus across party lines on gun reform. That would be kind of a problem because it leaves the Democratic and Republican politicians with one fewer issue to rile us up, get us worked up in a fit of rage over the supposed idiots on the other side, which ultimately leads us to vote against our best interest. I mean, I hate to throw this in here, but the only way gun reform gets passed in this country is if more black people buy and carry guns, which is another inconvenient truth. Racism underlies America's gun inaction. Now, if you watch my videos, you know I'm not one to jump on the race angle too much, but do you ever notice that whenever there is a mass shooting, the narrative is very different depending on the race of the shooter? If the shooter is white, it's something to do with the individual, his mind was messed up, he had a bad day. But if the shooter is black or brown, it's somehow reflective of a collective disease like terrorism or gangs. When white people bring out guns, it's about protection, patriotism. But if a black person carries a gun, they're labeled a gangster, a threat. During the Civil Rights era, when African Americans started using the Second Amendment to their advantage, like Huey Newton and the Black Panthers, people were like, whoa, okay, yeah, we need some gun control. Even the NRA supported gun control when it came to disarming black people. The most recent federal gun reform legislation to pass, the Public Safety and Recreational Firearms Use Protection Act, was a subsection of the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act of 1994. You know, the crime bill that we talk so much about that was targeted at black and brown communities? Yeah, that one. Dr. Jonathan Metzl, a psychiatrist and sociologist at Vanderbilt University and author of Dying of Whiteness, How the Politics of Racial Resentment is Killing America's Heartland, said in an interview, when we talk about guns and people end up polarized, it's not just because we disagree about gun politics. It's because gun politics symbolizes a far greater series of tensions in this country. When we're talking about guns, we're also talking about race. And that sentiment kind of sums up another inconvenient truth. There is no easy solution. I mean, the only real way to eliminate gun deaths is to have no guns.
Who can tell me the safest form of safe sex?
Condoms.
Incorrect. The only true form of safe sex? Okay. Abstinence.
Oh, I didn't realize we were doing trick questions. What's the safest way to go skiing? Don't ski.
Right, no guns at all seems like kind of a cop-out, especially given the reality that gun ownership is embedded deep in American culture. I mean, look, I think there's going to be a lot of people out there that would be totally okay with going no guns. And full disclosure, I don't like guns. They scare me. I've never shot one. Don't think I will. But a lot of other people out there like guns. Hashtag AR-15 has over 2.8 million posts on Instagram. And I have to say, I believe the majority of gun owners are not stupid or crazy. So if guns are a part of our culture, I think we have the collective responsibility to balance the right to protect oneself, which is cited as the primary reason why people own guns, with safety, limiting gun deaths, especially mass shootings, because I think for the number of guns we have, there are way too many senseless gun deaths. The United States is the leader in homicides by firearm with 29.7 deaths per 1 million people, with a gun ownership rate of 88.8 guns per 100 people. Switzerland comes in second when it comes to per capita gun ownership rate, 45.7 guns per 100 people, but with only 7.7 homicides by firearm per 1 million people. So half the number of guns and only a quarter of the deaths. Swiss statutes and traditions is actually pretty respectful of the right to bear arms. Swiss laws let militia members in the country, where all able-bodied men are required to serve in the military, except for conscientious objectors, keep their issued personal weapons in their homes. But they have some restrictions, like private gun ownership generally requires a license, for which an applicant must be at least 18 years of age, may not have been placed under guardianship, may not give cause for suspicion that he would endanger himself or others with a weapon, and may not have a criminal record with a conviction for a violent crime or of several convictions for non-violent crimes. I guess what I'm saying is that given America is a country that respects the right to bear arms, how can we get to a point where we're doing our best to limit these horrific situations? Because right now, on one side, we have these professional agitators like the NRA or right-wing politicians radicalizing right to bear arms advocates. And on the other side, we have folks who have never owned a gun or fired a gun, painting broad strokes characterizing Second Amendment people as gun nuts. This only contributes to polarization. Putting gun owners on the defensive makes it much harder for regular Americans to cut through the BS that's put out there to divide us. The solution to me has to be for regular people to take back the conversation and de-escalate the rhetoric. So what I'm basically calling for is a little bit of nuance, but unfortunately our current media and political landscape does not reward nuance or reasonable conversation. It's all about how extreme we can get. There's a reason why most of us have heard of Lauren Boebert, who represents Colorado's 3rd District.
It's time to cut the crap and remember, this is the people's house. Madam Speaker, tear down this wall.
But another Republican representative from Colorado, Doug Lamborn, no clue who he is. And this is a little bit of what 5149 is all about. I don't like the way our politics rewards hyperbolic positions or personalities. Just a normal guy, I have my core beliefs and ways in which I look at arguments, but beyond that, I'm up for hearing your ideas and your arguments as long as they're made in good faith. In the case of guns, I don't have any experience with them, so I don't necessarily think I'm the best person to weigh in here, but what I do know is that politicians and groups like the NRA are here to turn up the heat on our culture war, to maintain our corrupt two-party duopoly, and to keep people apart, to keep us from being able to work together towards fundamental structural changes that our country so badly needs. And those are my thoughts about guns. I don't think there's much consensus here on this issue, so let me know what you think in the comment section below. If you like what I'm doing with this channel, please like the video, but more importantly, share it with people. That would really help us grow our community. Lastly, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so. My name is James Late. Thank you so much for your time, and I will see you next week.